What's going on, everybody? Jay Curtis Strickland here, your favorite bipolar rock and roller, and you are now watching the T&F podcast. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that stuff. Today in the house, we have legendary frontman of the legendary hardcore act 18 Visions, and also the frontman of Burn Halo, Mr. James Hart, and he's been so awesome to grace us with his presence today. Had the funniest interviews on Trustkill.com back in the day, which was kind of what attracted me to listen to 18 Visions initially. And he's down in Southern California. I guess my first question for you, man, would be, what was it like growing up in Southern California? And did you come from a musical background? Did you have music in your family? And how did that come to start 18 Visions?
Yeah, so I didn't have really music in my family. It came from like a single parent. Just sort of fell into it. I got into like I was into like 80s like hair metal and grunge, early 90s stuff. And then I found like punk and like metal, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, stuff like that. And then when I got into high school, I just kind of found stuff that was like a mixture of what I thought was like punk and metal, which was like hardcore. And I gravitated more towards that because it just had more like feeling to it. It had more like purpose. I felt like I went to a show. My first show I think was like 108 and like Mean Season in Long Beach. So it was like 94, I think. And I just felt like I like belonged somewhere for the first time, you know. I was trying to find myself, and growing up was tough. And growing up in that era of like metal and hardcore was just such a great thing, especially in Orange County. There was just so many great bands. There was a show just about every weekend or sometimes twice a week. And I had friends in school and outside of school as well, different schools that I would connect with through like hardcore, and we'd go together. And then it wasn't until I guess my sophomore year, this kid was playing guitar in one of my classes, and he was starting a band with Dave Peters and Ken Floyd, who would eventually like make up 18 Visions initially. And he asked me if I wanted to sing, and I had like no experience, you know? And so I just kind of went for it. I was like really into like Sepultura and Pantera, like for vocals, you know, like the just angry or more pissed off stuff, even more so than some of the hardcore stuff I was listening to. It just had like more teeth to it. And so that's kind of what I tried to go for. Like early on, it was like, felt like maybe a little bit more death metal, I guess. But yeah, I got kicked out of the band after like, I don't know, a few practices, and they played a show without me with this guy, Russ, that ended up singing for Eyelid. And then he left to go do Eyelid, and they brought me back and later formed 18 Visions.
Right on, man. Right on. And I know you guys were heavily influenced by actually one of my favorite metal hardcore acts, Bloodlet.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We were super into Bloodlet. They just had a vibe about them. The music was heavy. It was dark. The vocals, the lyrics, it just all had this like evil vibe to it, where like Unbroken had more like of a punk metal feel to it. This had more of like a darker, like sludgier metal feel to it. Both bands obviously heavily influenced us, but yeah, Bloodlet was a big one for us.
Very underrated band, no?
Yeah, I think because like with Victory Records, you know, they had like the traditional like Strife type band, and Snapcase, which was like really accessible. Earth Crisis was more metal and had like the vegan straight edge like connection to it. And I felt like Bloodlet, it felt more metal to me. It didn't feel as hardcore. And I felt like maybe at that time and place there wasn't really a spot for them, and they kind of got lost in the shuffle of all those Victory bands.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that one. Now, so you said 18 Visions. You guys started what, like mid 90s, something like
Yeah,
that?
95, 96, around there. I think we really started kind of playing in 96.
What do you feel like was kind of the initial reception to the band whenever you were first starting out? Was it, were you guys well accepted? Was there a big hype around you guys around your inception?
I don't think there was a hype, but I think we were fairly well received when we would play, especially as we started playing more and more, and the band got, I don't know that we got tighter, but we got, I guess, a little bit more comfortable and on stage and with our instruments and what we were doing. But I feel like it's just so weird, man. Orange County at that time, even though the hardcore scene was just this massive thing, this just huge melting pot, I still felt like there was some pushback, and certain bands didn't want to play with us, and they kind of wanted to like keep it more, I guess, like hardcore. They didn't want like the metal stuff coming into it. So there was a little bit of that, but I guess that's kind of par for the course, especially back then.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Now you guys have uh, commonly been lumped into the fashion core aesthetic. Was that a result of you guys being involved in hairdressing and doing hair and things like that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think I think being involved in that, like, you just kind of gravitate towards like fashion and style. So me and Hav were going to school for that. And then Ken worked at Banana Republic, which I also started working there as well. And it was cheaper to kind of buy clothes from there. And we had to like wear a certain, like, we had to wear button ups and sweaters and like, be presentable if you're gonna work at like a shop like that.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, just I guess it was definitely kind of cheaper for us to buy like new clothes from there. We got like a 50% discount, and like buying 50% on top of like the sale rack, it just was like so cheap. And we were wearing like smalls, right? We were trying to find the smallest shit possible at the time and like make it fit even if it didn't. So there's a lot of smalls and extra smalls left on the sale racks. And I think, yeah, just the whole hair thing, it just all kind of fit like a vibe. And um I think we drew a lot of inspiration from bands like Unbroken, and then like 80s bands too that just had a style and vision about them, like on stage.
Okay. Right on. Now, when 18 Visions first started, you guys were, picked up by Trustkill, which I think during that day was hands down. I mean, I was a big fan of Victory Records back in the day as well, but Trustkill definitely had kind of the more metal and the metalcore thing going, and I think that whole era of Trustkill, late 90s, early 2000s, was amazing. So, what how like did the band kind of take off after that? Were you guys I mean, I remember seeing a tour with you guys with Every Time I Die, American Nightmare, and Terror. What was kind of the trajectory? You guys hit the road immediately after that?
Yeah, pretty much. So we signed with Trustkill at the end of 1999. We had the Lifeless EP and the Yesterday is Time Killed LP, which I think there was only 2,000 CDs made, and that was it. So eventually, I would love to repress that, get that out on vinyl. But we had sent that everywhere. We sent it to Ferret, we sent it to Victory, we sent it to Hydra Head. Like, I mean, all of our favorite hardcore labels at the time, and Trustkill was the only one that showed interest. So with that, we pretty much had the 7-inch written. We just went in and recorded it. The No Time for Love 7-inch, put that out. And I think because like hardcore on the East Coast, just that whole scene, it's just so like an hour drive here, 2 hours there, 3 hours there, and you can be at any show with your distro, right?
Right.
And that's, I feel like, a big part of how bands were getting their music out there. These labels would go and set up their distros and get them out there. And I think it helped because there wasn't a ton of like internet like access at the time. I don't think. I think it was just starting to surface.
Yeah.
So for us, it was like kind of we did that 7-inch. We hit the road that winter, and we did I think like a 2-week tour. I think it was mostly by ourselves. We would link up with some bands and play a couple shows in each region with some of the bands that were from there. I think Every Time I Die was on one of those early shows we did around Buffalo. Um, and then we just kept touring and touring. Yeah, we did some stuff with American Nightmare, Poison the Well. Um, that was yeah, and then the Until the Ink album came out at the Hellfest that got shut down. And I just remember selling CDs out of the back of our van, not knowing if we were going to get to play or not. And it was just an overwhelming like response. Like kids were just coming up like left and right. Hey, can I buy a CD? Hey, can I buy a CD? And we sold like hundreds that day. And then they were able to find like a new location for the show, went and played, and it was just like intense and just this like big outlet for all the bands and the kids that just were kind of stressed. Is this going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And it was just like this fucking awesome, like just giant ball of energy in a small room. It was fucking great. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the No Time for Love 7-inch. That was the first thing I ever heard of you guys, and I'm like, holy shit, this is brutal. And it was such a like a so out of left field because like I said, I used to read your interviews when you guys were on Trustkill. I'm like hairdressers. I'm like, what the hell? What's this music gonna sound like? But I was so captivated by the humor that was in them. I was like, I gotta check this out just out of curiosity. And what I heard was just like completely not what I was expecting. I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome, And so yeah, completely floored me. And I think floored a lot of people and kind of took them uh took everybody by surprise, truthfully. Anybody that wasn't in the OC scene that didn't know you guys already. Um we got a question here. It's from
Oh,
Ben
sure.
NG. It says there seems to be a point around Vanity when there was a Stone Temple Pilots direct obsession. Is that accurate?
Like yes and no. I think it might have even come before that. Um, Musically, Keith brought this. So Keith really started writing on Until the Ink Runs Out. And he brought like an element to the band where he grew up listening to a lot of the same stuff I did, like 90s grunge, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, STP, and he started writing riffs that were, Alice in Chains has fucking heavy riffs. Nirvana's got some like heavy riffs. Like if you drop tune some of those riffs and like play them like with a halftime, same as Stone Temple Pilots, like they're pretty heavy. And so he started incorporating these heavier rock riffs into Until the Ink Runs Out. And then I think it was like we did Motionless in White for like the best of release. And I was like, I'm gonna try like actually singing on a song and over like a melodic part, and we all liked it. And then I think Vanity, it just everyone started like kind of really like diving into their influences that weren't like metal and hardcore related, and kind of just like fusing it all together. And so vocally, I was exploring a lot of the stuff that I was into: STP, Alice in Chains, stuff like that. And I guess that's it probably shows through a lot on that record specifically. But yeah, I think we were all like really, really into those bands. Mainly me and Keith, still are to this day.
Nice. Yeah, I heard the Vanity re-recording, the one that came out I think last year, and I guess that was kind of one of my things when I was listening to the original recording. I was like, this feels like it needs more punch, and that it could be like sonically a lot different than what it is. And upon hearing the re-recording, I was like, wow. I was like, it's like a completely different album, and it's awesome. So was that kind of the impetus to re-record that, was to just get a better quality
Yeah,
recording?
I don't think better quality. I think so. Keith does like all the production, right? So he is just this wizard that has on his own throughout the years learned how to like record music. And him and Ken would do our demos starting, I guess, kind of starting on Obsession. They started fucking around with Pro Tools. And that's when we were really kind of able to like structure songs, and we weren't just writing in like a rehearsal space and throwing riffs upon riffs upon riffs, which listening back to Vanity, like that's definitely something we did. It was just like, hey, I got an idea. Hey, I got an idea. And like it was
Mhm.
just, I think writing for me with that was just repetition, because I didn't really, I think maybe after I had like a song pretty good, I'd bring in like a boom box and like do like a really shitty recording so I could like wrap my head around it and try to write a little bit more and like fine tune some things.
Mhm.
But I think it was just us wanting to like explore the record now, like where we are like 20 years later as like
Okay.
people, as musicians, and also like playing shows. We've been, we tune to A now. So like, when we play these songs, we've been playing them in A. So like, let's try and, record them in A and see how it sounds. And this could be something cool, like do a little, and yeah, it was the double LP with the originals and the new recordings. And yeah, it's just kind of been, I think, fun for us too, to just, dive back in and see where we can not necessarily make things better, but make things maybe a little bit more interesting for ourselves.
Okay. Right on. Tristan Brew here says, why were pop culture samples so important to the Vanity record?
Yeah, so with that, I think that dates back to like Lifeless. We were putting samples on the records, and then we did, God, I can't remember. We for sure did one or two on Yesterday's Time Killed. We had the Indiana Jones on No Time for Love. We had the Back to the Future, Shining on Until the Ink, and it just like bands in the '90s that we grew up listening to, like were putting samples on records, right? And like before songs, or like right like right in like the space of like maybe a song with some feedback. And I was just always thought that that was like a cool like '90s kind of throwback vibe
Yeah.
to it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's always been fun to us, so we just have continued to do it. I think the only record, I think we didn't really do it on Obsession or the 2006 self-titled, because at that point we were told like we couldn't do that, and like the label wouldn't release it with that on there. So
Was that like a copyright or like a
must,
rights thing, or they
yeah,
just didn't
must,
want it?
yeah, it must have been. It must have been a rights
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. And it's interesting. I was listening to one of your newer singles, Ravenous Ways, and it starts with a sample. And I was like, holy shit, they're still doing the samples. I'm like, that's awesome. And I'm kind of with you on that, in that, yeah, it created like a whole different, different aesthetic to the sound, where it was like, especially if what was going on in the sample kind of played into the subject matter and the lyrics of the song. And so I want to take this opportunity. I have to guess the sample because I feel like I know what movie it's from,
Okay.
but is it Interview with the Vampire?
No, you're really close. You're
Oh,
really close.
what is it?
It's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn. All right. I was
Yeah.
close. I knew it had to be a vampire movie. Okay, let's see. We got another question here. Ben NG says, "Did you have to deal with any backlash from hardcore purists, or was it all reserved online smack talk?"
Yeah, I think like we got it. I feel like with Vanity, like touring that record was, I think, like the most backlash we really started to get. I saw a little bit of it online, but I was not like a message board person. Like, so I didn't, and I didn't really care. Like, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want anyways, because it's fun and it makes
Sure.
me happy. You know what I mean? Um, I think at shows, we did a co-headline tour with Throwdown, and Terror and Under Oath was the opening band. And Terror, I think it was their first record, and they brought like a different like vibe to the shows um, that Throwdown did, because we'd always kind of played with Throwdown. We've done tours with Throwdown in the past, and it was just this Orange County thing. But Terror brought like a new breed, and it was like, Scott Vogel was just like, cut your fucking hair, like shave your head, like, and I think that like their fans really like gravitated to that. And it's funny because I actually, for that tour, I showed up with a shaved head, and people thought I did it because we were going on tour with Terror. And I would joke with Vogel that I did this for him. So like we went to Europe. We were in Europe for like 5 weeks, and I had like a week maybe in between tours, and I needed a haircut, and I had like this mohawk, and it wasn't fully shaved. It went all the way back, but it was still like a little longer on the sides. I didn't have time to get a haircut, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like do like a proper one and like buzz the sides. So I went with like a 2 guard, and I'm shaving up the top, and I had these janky fucking clippers, and the guard popped off right here and took just a massive chunk out of my fucking mohawk. And I'm like, okay, like what do I do? I'm at 0 guard right here. I can't salvage this at all. So I just fucking shaved the whole thing. It was terrible.
I've been there, man. I had a buddy of mine that he was cutting my hair and he was trying to do just a fade. And yeah, the guard just popped off and went like that. And I was like, just cut it all off, man.
Yeah, you look like you have a beautiful head shape, man. I do not. I do not. So
Yeah, it's always it's frustrating. I didn't want to shave it, but I started going bald, so I was like, ah, fuck it, whatever.
yeah, you did you made the right move, man. I feel
Yeah,
like
thanks.
I feel like I have friends that do that young, like early 30s, and like that I call it the Bruce Willis, where you shave it at a young age so that when you're 50, like you're not doing it and like it's not like gradually going. You're aging
Yeah,
with your fucking, like, I don't want to call it a haircut, but you're aging with like the style, right? So
right.
when you finally do let it go, or it does start to really thin out, like it's not aging you. And that's the
Well,
move.
Bruce Willis, when he was doing like Moonlighting and Die Hard, he kind of had the halo thing going, and then
Yeah,
eventually he just took it all off, which I
yeah,
think truthfully was better for him.
yeah, for sure.
Um, I guess, yeah. What kind of motivated you to go get into hairdressing?
I think like just being into like punk and like rock and metal, and seeing like the different hairstyles and trends, the mohawks, the different colors. Like, Kurt Cobain had like fucking pink hair. Lane Staley had like this short, like cool pink hair. Like Motley Crue had like big black teased hair. Like Robert Smith. Yeah, stuff like that. So I was always just trying to fuck with my hair in high school. Like I remember I had a shaved head and it was dyed green. Then I bleached it, and I knew like a corporate type job wasn't going to be for me, and like I wasn't quite involved in music yet. When I was doing all of this stuff to myself, I was more like a half-ass skateboarder. So I say half-ass because I played sports too, and like I was never willing to like hurt myself bad enough to where I couldn't play in like a game, like
Yeah.
skateboarding and shit. So yeah, and then the band started, and then like I started like just doing different stuff. I had dreadlocks for like a second; they were fucking terrible. Yeah, just it looked like fucking cat. Like I bleached them; it looked like cat like hairballs. It was absolutely terrible. Um, and then I just in high school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do hair. Like, come over, let me cut your hair. And then I had this girlfriend that was blonde at the time, and I was like, let me put some highlights in your hair. So I got some kitchen foil and some bleach and just like scrunched it up in there, like no fucking rhyme or reason, and it like lightened
Uh,
it. It looked cool, and I was like, oh, that's rad. Like I'm definitely gonna do this. And
wow.
so when I had the time and money to go to school, I did, and kind of like went with that career path until we put Vanity out and started touring full time.
Yeah, I will say, man, there's a real talent in people in Southern California that can cut hair. I mean, we were talking before the show, and I think Javier's given me one of the best haircuts I ever had in my life. I was like, the guy's really good at what he does, and just super clean. And so that's yeah, that's interesting. Heart God Media says, has there ever been a discussion on an 18 Visions documentary? There's so much to cover. Would you and Keith be open to the idea if someone came to you with the idea of one?
Yeah, I would 100% be open to it. Never really thought about it. We've never talked about it. I think like Me and Keith love like writing music and new music, so we're always working on stuff. Like we just put a 6-song EP out that has pretty much been finished for over a year. We just needed to like tighten up some like loose ends with it. But then we realized, oh, hey, there's a Vanity 20 year next year. So let's like pump the brakes on this and like shift focus to that, which was fun and cool. But like we're really into like creating new music. So I think we're always kind of like in the moment of like what's next creatively and new and fresh for us, rather than like, oh yeah, we got this 20 year coming up next year. It's not next year, but 2025 is Until the Ink 25 year.
Oh,
And I
wow.
still want to get out the Yesterday is Time Killed LP. I still want to do a Lifeless 10-inch and like reissue some stuff. So, but they're just not like stuff we're currently having like conversations about. So, I mean, I would be open to it, but I don't know that like, because we do everything ourselves right now, I don't know that we have the bandwidth to do that. I think somebody would have to come in and really kind of take the reins and direct with that, but I'm definitely open to it.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. Um, Tristan Brew says, "Are your Sundays really free these days because of how terrible the Bears are?"
No, I watch every game. I don't care. I'll watch every single game. I watch every Bears game. I watch every Chelsea match. Doesn't matter how fucking shit we are or how good we are. I make time to watch them all. Usually with the Chelsea matches, because it's like 8 hours ahead. Saturday mornings, I work in the salon, so I usually have to watch those on a replay later in the day. But yeah, I don't miss anything.
All right. Let's see here. Cam Shattuck says, "When is Purgatorio coming out?"
Yeah, so the full like EP for streaming should be what day is it here? I think it'll be in about a week. Um, we've done things really different this time around. Keith wanted to try releasing each song as a single to give each song more attention. I kind of wanted to just do 1 or 2 songs and then launch the EP in full. So I don't really care either way. I just kind of went with what he wanted to do. So if you ordered the vinyl, you have all 6 songs. I've gotten messages from people that don't have record players that bought it, so they can't listen to the final song, but should be in about a week or so, I would say.
Are you guys self-releasing that, or is that coming out on the label?
Yeah, self-release right now for everything. It's we've talked about a label, but I guess we just haven't really explored it. We did some distribution through like Lamb Goat on this one. We gave them a pressing, like a variant of it, just to get more units out there and I guess more eyes on it. And yeah, they were big fans of us and wanted to start their label up. And yeah, so we just, I guess, gave them a few units and they kind of ran with it. But a proper label would be cool. The thing is, we don't want to tour really, like especially full time. Keith and I like have like pretty extensive like day jobs. He's got a family. We can kind of come and go whenever we want. But being gone for like long stretches at a time doesn't really work for us. So like the whole like fly out, play 2 or 3 shows a weekend is more like our zone, I would say.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know if a label's into that or if they care. We just haven't really explored the idea, but open to it.
I guess this would be a good question. I remember the self-titled album came out on a major. What was it like working with a major?
Yeah, it had its pros and cons. I mean, they gave us enough money to where like we could literally just come home and like focus on like writing and recording a record. We didn't have to like go to work and like come into the studio after hours and like make this like schedule work around like the producer. The producer flew out and like lived out here basically for a month. He's from New Jersey. We didn't want to go out there. I don't know why we didn't want to go out there. I can't quite remember, but Yeah, he flew out here for pre-production, flew home, flew back. We tracked everything. I think he might have gone home again for a week or two and then came back. Look, like it afforded us like big budgets to do music videos, like have a proper crew on tour. But with that said, because they spent so much money, they didn't really, I feel like, know how to like market the band properly. Right off the bat, we felt like they chose the wrong single, and like we fought hard for that to not be the single. And they basically said, look, like we'll give you $100,000 for a video and a full radio push, or you can have 10 grand and you can go to the distro label and call it a day. And we're just like, well, fuck, like, well, what do we do? Like we've come this far. And then we were on tour with Avenged Sevenfold, and the label came out to New York, and like we played a full set, and they're like, oh, these guys are like really heavy. Like, we played like Tower of Snakes. We played a couple songs off Vanity. And they're like, oh, this isn't just like a heavy rock band. Like these guys are like proper heavy. Yeah, maybe we should switch to single. So they switched to single to Victim, which is what we fought for to begin with, which is great. But we had all these radio stations that had already added Tonightless that were like, no, we're not going to add Victim. And then all the radio stations that were like, we're not going to add Tonightless added Victim. So we didn't have the cohesiveness. And then when our music video aired, Headbangers Ball and like Fuse, MTV, MTV2, they were playing Tonightless. They weren't playing Victim. So like nothing fucking worked together. It was just a mess. And it sucks. Our A&R guy was great. He is like an old hardcore dude. He got it. He understood. He went to bat for us. Everyone that like worked our record for the most part, like understood like the band. It was just the fucking president. And yeah, I mean, what can you do?
Right. I remember I was at a bar one time just hanging out, and I went up to the jukebox, and I was looking around, and it said 18 Visions Victim, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, what? And I was like, well, let's play it, and it was just so far out to see, where you guys had been, and then where you were at that point. It was pretty wild.
Yeah,
Then
I look at like a band like Cave In too, that got signed to like a major. There's a lot of like bands that come from like the hardcore world, post-hardcore, where the major label just doesn't know how to like properly market it. They think we'll just throw fucking money at it and it's fine, right? Where like the indie label is very particular about where they spend the money and like how the resources are used, and like it's more of a grassroots like type of build, right? And like every fucking dollar counts, and like because every dollar counts, everything is like working on the right timeline, working together. And the major label's just like, here's fucking 100,000 here, 100,000 there, here's 200,000, and it's just like none of it fucking works together. So you're just flushing money down the toilet. Right. And then when that happens, like, they give up and they're like, oh, first quarter of the new year, can't spend on this band anymore,
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Ben NG says, now that metal reigns in hardcore again, is 18 Visions interested in coming back with a hard album? Well, Purgatorio, right?
Yeah, Purgatorio and Inferno, I think. Go check those out. Pretty heavy, pretty hard, pretty aggressive, pretty metal. We did a cover LP during COVID with an original song. That was fun. That song, I think, is pretty heavy. You might dig those.
Ben also says, and or a set at This Is Hardcore Fest. I think enough time has gone by for that nostalgia pop.
Yeah, so we did that. We did This Is Hardcore back in 2018, I think. Was fucking awesome. I would do it again. Yeah, it was mostly old shit. Psychotic Thought. I think 2 or 3 songs off Until the Ink, Motionless in White. Like, I mean, when we play live now, we really I think we really find ourselves enjoying like the back catalog and playing those songs live, not just because they get a response, but because I I think for me, they take me back to a place where music was fun and it was like not a job,
Right.
right? I feel like it became more of a job with obsession. Not to say I didn't love that record and like making and writing that record. I really fucking did a lot, especially in the moment. Um, but I think it just, yeah, just it had it like you said, nostalgia pop. It holds nostalgia for me. So playing those songs just brings me back and like trying to write, not trying to, but writing new material in the vein of Until the Ink and like maybe even like yesterday's Time Killed, but like with a much more like modern feel to it. I think is kind of like where we've been going with the last two EPs.
Um, is there an album that's more personal to you than any of the other albums?
Um, it's a good question. It's tough. I don't think anyone in particular because each one like represents me in what I'm going through in the time that it was written, right? So in like 1999 and 2000, like Until the Ink Runs Out was super important to me. 2002, 2003, Vanity was like everything to me. 2004, Obsession, like that was everything to me, especially because I was really kind of starting to find myself as a vocalist. Uh, and then like the 2006 self-title, I like felt like I was where I wanted to be vocally. I know like in the scope of 18V, it's not like a real 18V record to a lot of people, and it's not as like heavy. There's not really any screaming on it, but I really learned a lot about myself as a singer on that record. And I think if it wasn't for that record, I wouldn't have gone on to try different things, and I wouldn't be afraid or as willing to come back and like just be fucking brutal, like from
Yeah.
start to finish on a song. And like I've already done all that singing, I can do it. I don't need to put it on every song. I don't need to put it like here. Like I know I've surprised Keith a few times with showing up to record, and he's not heard what I've written yet. And there'll be like kind of a melodic part on a newer song, and I'm screaming over it. He's like, "Oh, I thought you would have sung over that." And I was like, "Yeah, just fucking wanted to go with this vibe." So I think, um, yeah, I think they're all special to me in their own way and in their own time.
Okay. Tristan Brew says, does that mean you wouldn't play Obsession in full considering it's the 20-year anniversary at Furnace Fest if asked?
That doesn't mean that at all. No. Um, yeah, I mean, we know like that was like our biggest record, right? In terms of like record sales and like peak attendance for us, the peak touring that we were getting, like that was like the pinnacle for us. Even though the next record came out on a major and we did a couple of like really big tours on that, it's still like the height was like for us was Obsession. And um, yeah, definitely exploring the idea of doing not just like Furnace Fest if asked, but like other shows. Yeah, we want to do that. And like with Vanity, we did Vanity, and we played all those songs. And then at the end of the set, we threw in three more, maybe four, just to like, not just appease fans, but ourselves, like, hey, like I want to play fucking Motionless in White, right? Like, we're gonna play Tower of Snakes. It's not on Vanity, but like we gotta fucking play that song. It's heavy, like everyone loves it, like we love it. So yeah, it's I can see something like that for Obsession happening, doing an Obsession set with three or four songs at the end, just fucking pure heaviness.
What's some of your favorite places to play, either in the States or overseas? Like, who do you feel, audience-wise, like just completely gets it and just will set it off for you guys?
I feel like aside from like being at home and playing like a local like Southern California show, Chicago, New York, um, Massachusetts, were like Worcester, always like really fucking good for us. And then talk about like international, London has always been like not just one of my favorite places to visit, but also play. I feel like for people on the mainland, it's a real easy place to get to for a show. It's a short, probably cheap flight or fucking
Tunnel.
riding the train over.
Yeah.
Those shows are always such a fucking great vibe. The UK in general was just always so crushing for us. Such a good vibe on so many levels.
Nice. Was there ever a moment when you guys had like an immense period of difficulty where you were just like, maybe it could be an unfortunate tour experience where you're like, is this really what I want to do type thing?
I mean, every band has fucking van breakdowns, right? Whether it's every band has fucking done a transmission, right? Every band has. Every band's done their fucking trailer. Every band's done their tires, like, and you miss shows and you're just fucking bummed. There's nothing you could do about it. Transmission will kind of set you back. It could set you back a week. Just depends on where you're at, right?
Right.
So that shit aside, I think there was a mentality about the band in 2006 after the self-titled release, and we were in the UK, and I just remember like a couple of the guys saying like, if this record doesn't work out, like I'm done. And I was like, well, why? They're like, well, we've been touring in buses and it's been comfortable. And I don't want to like go backwards. Like, I don't want to like start over again. And
Right.
I think like that mentality before we got dropped, because that mentality was already there, like getting dropped from the label just made it like, all right, this is it. It's done. Right. Rather than like, all right, hey, let's fucking reset. Let's write another record. Let's go get another label. Like we could sign to like a different label. Let's, maybe we're writing a record we don't feel like, I don't want to say we felt forced to write that record in 2006 because we definitely were not at all forced to do anything that like we didn't want to do. It was all a natural progression. And if you really listen to each record in succession, there is a natural progression there of like what 18 Visions became. But maybe, I don't know, maybe we would have written a heavier record. Maybe it would have been more metal. It's really, really hard to tell. I feel like things didn't work out for us. And then that genre specifically, that type of music specifically just fucking blew up. Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like we were just right before the explosion. And so we were a little bit too early. And so maybe if we went back and like wrote another record, that it would have happened for us. And, you and I would be having a different conversation right now. But at the end of the day, like I'm happy with my life. I'm happy where I'm at. Like I'm happy how it all worked out. I think doing 18 Visions now is just fucking pure joy of like, God, like the early years of being in a band where we're doing our own thing. Nobody's like, no one's telling us what to do. Like we don't have any expectations. They're just like, hey, do you want to fucking get together and write some music? Do you want to like go play some shows? Let's reissue this record. And it's all been fun. Like there's no fucking stress about it. And that's the best part.
That's awesome. Ben NG says, are you a WWE fan?
I used to be. When I was a kid, I would rent like elementary school into like, I guess out of high school. When I was in elementary school, my mom would pick me and my sister up from school on Friday and take us to this place called the Warehouse that had like, you remember the Warehouse, and we would rent like movies. My sister would rent the same fucking movie over and over and over again. And I would go rent whatever like new wrestling video was out, like SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Survivor series, like all that shit. And
Yeah.
so I was way into like that stuff. And then I would go back and watch the older shit from like the early 80s, right? And then I kind of followed it until, I don't know, 1999 ish, I would say.
Mm.
And then I just kind of stopped. Yeah. I don't know why or what happened. I think it was one of those things where WCW was getting all the good talent. So I was watching that,
Yeah.
and WWE was shit. And then WWE was good again, and WCW was shit. And there was like maybe a merger or something. I kind of stopped around all that.
Then Vince McMahon tried to do the XFL, and we
Yeah.
see how that went.
Yeah.
What's your craziest tour experience? Like, what's something completely wild that you were just like, we would never see this ordinarily?
Oh man.
Or it could be a multiple experiences.
Um, like it's not crazy, but it was just weird because that just wouldn't happen here. And I don't think it would happen in most places. And I think most people wouldn't like have the fucking balls to walk up to like 10 to 12 dudes that were like fully fucking tattooed, like at a dinner table. But we were in France with Throwdown on our first tour. And we were eating in this like Italian restaurant. I don't even remember what city it was in. And like we were all just sitting there minding our own business. And this guy, he's probably my age, like early mid 40s, just normal looking dude, walks up to the table and yells at us, "I fucking hate Bush." And he just like walks off. And we're like, "Yeah, cool, man. Like, so do we." Like, and it was just like the most fucking random thing. Yeah, I like that's up there. Like I remember the first time we played Harpo's in Detroit, they had like armed security with like assault rifles. And like that was fucking wild. And we're like, what's the meaning of all this? And like, oh, this place gets robbed all the time. The manager a few weeks ago was executed and robbed behind the venue. It's like fucking crazy. And like I remember walking over to KFC across the street from there at the time, and there was like bulletproof glass like between like the cashier and like the person ordering, and they handed it through like a little like an opening like
Right, yeah.
order. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fucking weird. And like I came back with food, and this dude at the venue was like, "You fucking went over? Like, what are you doing going over there?" I was like, "What do you mean? Like, they're like, you can't fucking go over there." I was like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because you could get fucking shot or robbed." And I had no clue, man. Like, it was just like, it's so foreign to me, right? Like,
Right.
yeah.
This was in the States?
Yeah,
Or this was
Detroit.
in France? Oh, in
Detroit.
Detroit. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds pretty accurate.
Oh, another wild story. That same tour with Throwdown in Europe, our tour. So we had our own tour manager. The booking agency also gave us a tour manager / driver, and we had two drivers, but one guy was in charge of like money. And we had this big argument, like 18B and Throwdown, at the beginning of the tour over who was going to handle our money. And we wanted our friend who was our tour manager, Scott Biggie, to handle our money. And and so I feel like he did take our stuff, but Throwdown was like, no, we're going to give it to this guy. And we were in Rome, and this dude staged a fucking robbery. We all went out. We had like a half a day to fucking do whatever in Rome. I remember we parked down by the Colosseum, and we met back at the appropriate time that we were supposed to meet back at fucking bus call or whatever. And as we're there, the tour manager is like, "Oh, somebody let the air out of this tire," and like he's checking out the tire, and like the door was open in the van, and like everybody was just kind of like minding their own business. And then he pops up. He's like, somebody just took all my shit. Somebody took my backpack. He's like, it has my passport. It has all the fucking money in it. And he was a Dutch guy. And we're like, what the fuck? Like, so we're kind of like looking around. And earlier in the tour, he had talked about like proposing like his girlfriend, right? And so like everybody's bummed. Like this guy like goes home. He's got no money. His passport's gone. He's like, I have to go to the embassy at home. Like I need to get a new passport. Like I can't be here anymore. The booking agent sends out a new driver. And this is the tour where in between I fucking accidentally shaved my head. So we get home and we have the tour with Throwdown, Terror, and Under Oath. And us and Throwdown are at a Denny's in Austin, Texas. Like, this is like, I had a week in between tours. So this is probably like 3 weeks time frame, maybe 4. We're at a Denny's and we fucking see him there at the Denny's with his fiance, and she's got a fucking rock on her finger. And he sees us. Oh. He sees us walk in, and he fucking beelines it for the door. Yeah. So that's probably
this was the guy in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. So his fiance was in States, but we didn't really know where she lived or where she was from. Guess she was from this in Austin. And yeah, half the guys, I feel like everyone in my band knew that he fucking robbed us. And like some of the guys in Throwdown were like, no, I don't think he would do that. And like, I don't know if like that changed their fucking tune or what, but yeah, he just fucking got up and bounced. Yeah.
Whoa.
Couldn't believe it.
Wow. And I mean, that's insane. Was he there? Like, I mean, you said you guys were in Austin. Was that like that would have been after a show then, right?
Yeah. Post show Denny's. Yep.
But he wasn't like anywhere to be seen at this show or anything like that.
No, not at all. No.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, he'd be pretty stupid to go to the show and then risk running into you guys. Right, wow, exactly. That's like that synchronicity in the universe, man. He knew that, or I guess the universe somehow knew that, he would have to experience some karma from that, and then just completely random. That's insane, man. That is wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's see here. Tristan Brew says, what are your thoughts on the new Sonata Arctica single? I listened to this band because of you.
Oh, awesome, man. I've not yet heard it. I actually saw it pop up, I think, in my Spotify either yesterday or the day before, but I'll check it out and I'll let you know.
Nice. Okay. So, we typically kind of talk about like, music and arts and culture on here, and, clearly with the samples and whatnot, 18 Visions was hugely influenced by, arts and entertainment and things like that. What are some like formative films or literature or things that you either read or watched when you were younger that you really feel like influenced you?
Oh man. I think Bram Stoker's Dracula has always been a favorite horror film of mine. Not the best Keanu Reeves acting performance. But the visuals are just fucking like unreal for the time. The vibe that it creates, and like I was into like darker shit, and like the Gary Oldman performance is just like absolutely incredible. I'm like super nerdy about like Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, like fantasy, like some sci-fi. I love the Star Wars stuff, but I'm not like a sci-fi guy per se. More into fantasy. Like books. I like stuff that like keeps me like wanting to read, right? So like I got into like some of like the earlier Dan Brown novels. Like years ago, I would read those on tour. I'm trying to think as a kid, like what books I read. in school, like grade expectations and all that shit, right? I don't know that
Yeah.
it necessarily, I don't know that that necessarily had like an influence on me. I would say what like I've always been into writing and creative writing. So I think like my imagination would always go to like history, right? So I would like picture like in history class, like reading about like the Roman Empire or, you know, the Byzantine Empire or the Ottomans and like the Ming Dynasty and stuff like that. And like kind of creating like a visual scene in my head of like what that looked like and like what some of these wars and battles look like and what civilization might have looked like back then. And I was always you know, we would always have to like write an essay like about like what we were reading, right? That was kind of like the year end or like the semester end thing. And like my grades were shit all year because I just didn't study. I didn't like test well. I didn't really do the work, but then I would turn in these like 100 plus essays, and like the teacher would be just like, "What are you doing, dude? Like, why don't you just like do your work? Like, this is like,
Yeah.
you know, like where you're taking this, you're writing like the descriptiveness, like that's just so fucking like ahead of where you should be."
Right.
So I think that like that stuff, like writing about a film, right? Like, hey, we're gonna watch Stand By Me in class. Like, we're gonna write about this. Swing Kids. I remember watching Swing Kids in high school and like having to write an essay on that. Like Swing Kids, like fucking that like moved me, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we know there was like a big like connection to like San Diego hardcore and Unbroken with like that film. So like I was just
Right.
like, oh, we're watching Swing Kids. Like I've already seen this like a bunch, but like fuck, like this is gonna be awesome. And now I get to
Right.
write like an essay about it. So there's like different movies, different like genres, Stand By Me, stuff like that's got like this connectivity for me where like I can kind of relate a little bit, you know?
Nice. It's funny that you bring up Swing Kids. I was in a chat, like a hardcore chat years ago, and somebody was like, "Oh, do you like Swing Kids?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "That's a great movie." It's like, "No, it's a fucking band, idiot!" Like that. I was like, "Oh, sorry, I had no idea. I just knew the movie, you know." But
Yeah,
come to find out that yeah, it was a SoCal band with members of Unbroken. I was like,
yeah,
"Sorry."
yeah, yeah.
What like do you watch anything right now? Like, I mean, I know with streaming content, you know, there's so much good stuff out there, and like, have you seen anything as of late that you were like, this floored me?
Oh fuck, my wife and I are big TV junkies, man. Like we're homebodies and like we watch way too much TV. Um, God, I'm trying to think. You know, Succession.
Yeah, I've heard that's good.
It's yeah, it's great. It's some of the best writing and acting. Like Better Call Saul was phenomenal. That's like the Breaking Bad
Yeah.
sequel or like prequel, I guess. Yeah, that was fucking incredible. God, what else did I just watch recently that was Barry on HBO
Oh
was
yeah.
also really fucking good. Um, HBO usually for the most part is a hit. Like it's got the bangers.
Yeah.
Right now I'm rewatching Outlander. I've not watched the final two seasons, but my wife and I were in Scotland over the summer and we did like a Highlands and like Isle of Skye tour. And our tour guide was just going on and on about like how historically accurate the show is. And I remember like season two, they went to France and I kind of fucked off on it a little bit, stopped paying attention. Just kind of lost me for a second. And then like he's explaining like the importance of France to like Scotland and like the Jacobite rebellion and like it just like pulled me back in. And I was like, oh, you know, I just visited like Culloden and like Glencoe and all these places in Scotland. I kind of want to rewatch the series, and so I started it over before I watched these next two seasons. So yeah, it's a good show.
Have you caught Bates Motel?
No, not yet. Good.
Ooh, I like when you talk about writing and, you know, just the way that the story is woven. some of the best like television I've ever seen ever.
Okay.
And the performances are fantastic. Vera Farmiga and Freddie Highmore.
Oh yeah.
And it's it takes place before the okay, it's a prequel for the Psycho franchise, but it takes place in modern times, and I kind of was like, I don't know if I really want to watch something like that. That doesn't sound interesting to me. And I was like, I'll give it a shot, and I was just like binged it, like all
Okay.
of it. I was like, God, this is so good. Yeah,
I'll give it a
yeah,
go. I mean,
fantastic.
I'm never lacking for shows to watch, so
Oh,
they're always trying
it's
to find
high
something.
on my list. And you were talking about the Bram Stoker's Dracula. Have you seen Werner Herzog's Nosferatu?
No, no.
Oh, that one is fantastic. And Klaus Kinski, he was a German actor. Interestingly, he was a German actor that trained in acting because he was in a POW camp in World War II, in a
Crazy.
British POW camp, and that's where he learned to act. And yeah, his daughter was Natasha Kinski, who was in the remake of Cat People back in the '80s. She was a model and
Okay.
really, yeah, really just moody, atmospheric. I think you'd enjoy it a lot.
Cool.
What's like a day in the life of James? Like, what do you, sans work? Like, if you had the day off, like, what would you be doing?
Yeah, so like on a Monday or a Tuesday, right? Like I usually get up around 5 a.m. with my wife, have coffee. She gets ready for work. Um, Feed the dogs, take them out, go to the gym for a couple of hours, come home, and like just kind of hang out, like do my thing, just kind of relax and just fucking zone out. Like today, I'll watch like some Champions League soccer. Um, Sundays is like the only day we have off together. So during like football season, we'll like, I'll usually get up around 6 or 7, go run some errands, come home, watch the Bears game. If Chelsea are playing before, we'll watch Chelsea first, and then we'll watch the Bears, and then just kind of hang
Mm,
out, like just chill, veg out, watch some shows. Yeah, just
mm.
keep it fucking mellow, man. Like, yeah,
Nice. Man, that's the life right there. I see you had the Better Lovers shirt on. What? Yeah. That's the band between. It's the members of. It's the members of Every Time I Die and Dillinger, right?
yeah, and then yeah, so Greg from Dillinger sings for him, and then you've got Steve, Jordan, and Goose from Every Time I Die, and then Will Putney from Fit for an Autopsy and playing guitar as well. Fucking awesome
That's
band.
awesome. Yeah, everybody keeps telling me to check them out, so I think I'm definitely gonna check them out now
Yeah,
because
it's. I
they're
mean,
running
if
shirt.
you were into like Etid and Dillinger, it's like fucking yeah.
Spot on. Nice. Um, are there any like upcoming bands or anyone that you aside from Better Lovers that you feel like deserves some sort of push or recognition?
Um, fuck, man. I like it's so tough. Like I don't get. I go to shows, right? But like I can't go to a show like 5 nights a week like I used to be able to. So like I got to
Right.
pick and choose, especially like Saturdays. I wake up early and like I take my first client at 7 a.m. So a Friday gig is rough, and then a Saturday night gig is rough because I've been up fucking all day, right?
Yeah.
So I don't get like exposed to a ton of like new up and coming bands. But like one band I checked out recently is called No Cure. They're fucking sick.
Okay.
Straight edge band. Um, Weapon X is fucking rad. Inclination's got a couple records out. They're fucking awesome. Um, and then End has got like I think like two full lengths and like an EP out, but I feel like maybe they're still a little like more under the radar because they don't tour as much as like your average like touring band does.
Who is this? Which band was this?
End,
Oh, End. Okay.
yeah,
Very cool.
that's
Um,
my heavier spectrum, I would say. Yeah.
okay. Right on. Now, okay, I always ask this question to people. If you could have dinner with somebody that was alive or dead, historical figure, anybody, celebrity, or anything like that, who would it be?
Oh man, that's a tough one. It's just like, what do I want to talk about, right? Like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
sit down and have dinner with somebody. Like, what do I want to talk about? And like, are the big question is, are they going to reciprocate the conversation? Because
You would hope so, right?
one of the dudes that comes to mind is fucking Liam Gallagher, and
Oh God.
he's probably a total fucking prick, right? But I could talk to him about music and
Yeah.
yeah, which would be
His
fucking
he I'll have to send you this later. He does this video. I don't know if you've seen it already, where he talks about making tea or something like that, and he says, "I used to have somebody that does this for me. I don't anymore. It's just a sign of the times. People downloading music and
yeah.
it just total. Yeah, he's charmingly dismissive. But
Mhm.
okay, so what's the date on Purgatorio? When is that going to be dropping again?
So I think it's going to be November 1st. Yeah.
November 1st. Okay.
The
And we
full
can hear that on all streaming platforms.
yeah.
Vinyl release too?
Yeah, the vinyl's already shipped. So yeah,
Okay, cool.
we did pre-order vinyl orders a couple of months ago. So we shipped that out. That was another thing Keith wanted to do was like we were like kind of like I don't want to say butting heads, but like we disagreed on it. He was like, well, if you order the record, you get to hear all the songs before everybody else. That's like a perk to ordering the vinyl, right?
Sure.
And I'm just like, but like it doesn't have like as big of a push to it. But he thought that there was something like cool about that. It serves the diehard fans that like, they get the song before everybody else does. Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, I'm going to post all the links to everything in the comments section where you can order the vinyl and
Awesome.
where to be able to stream everything. Um, this is the time in the show where I do a little bit of my own self promotion. I also run, and as you can see behind the banner, Hell's Heart Merch Co. BigCartel.com made these fan made Scream shirts, as you
Oh,
can
sick.
see
Yeah, there
here.
you go.
Yeah, this
That's
is
sick.
glow in the dark. This is the Tatum edition, and we typically do two T-shirts. This is the Randy edition. Like a three-panel. Wait, there we go. Three-panel, three-panel T-shirt that's got scenes from the movies. It plays out like a comic book. That's kind of how we
Awesome.
like to do it. But if anybody watching is interested, we've got a bunch of those shirts for sale, and we've got a bunch of different hardcore themed, movie themed T-shirts. So be sure to check those out. And like I said, like and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and be sure to support James and 18 Visions because they're continuing to do great stuff. And I know in the future they will continue to put out quality material, and they just fucking rock, man. So once again, James Hart, thank you for joining us. Hang out in the back real quick. I'll be able to get your contact info so I can send you some swag and stuff like that. But
Cool.
all right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and namaste. God bless. Be good. James Hart, thanks again.